NSFW, what is perfectly legal, but creepy as heck? Paparazzi. We have the right of complete access to your private life because a lot of people enjoy work that you do. That's the reasoning for their jobs. Thank God paparazzi is basically illegal in Europe. Edit, the European Union, not the whole of Europe. UK is excluded. I don't know about Russia. Didn't know this. I'm sure plenty of American celebrities' mental health would benefit tremendously from that sort of environment. The whole concept, assuming it is like the movies, is ridiculous. They certainly had a part to play, but I think the driver being drunk had a larger part in the whole thing. Exploiting your kids for fame on social media. I've seen the parents coaching the kids before when they didn't realize the camera was still recording accidentally uploaded the unedited video. I remember that mom who kept telling her son to cry harder, look more sad, BC his dog died, and he yelled at her, I am sad. It was so disgusting. Makes me think of the influencer girl suffering from anorexia with her mother enabling her and supporting her not to seek treatment, but letting the disorder run freely. It's heartbreaking, and I can't even comprehend why the mother is allowed to keep her daughter from getting better, while also inspiring other people to start messing around with their daily intake of calories. It's disgusting and dangerous. And I feel for the poor girl. I truly hope she will get away from her abusive mother to start healing. Dude, that one is rough. She looks so unwell. Never forgive the vloggers who adopted a kid with a disability they adopted specifically because they thought it'd be an easy disability to deal with, but still enough that they'd get clout for it. Micah Stouffer is a effing monster. Yeah, that was wild. They adopted an entire person for inspiration so they could look like the hero parents, then discarded him when he was too hard to take care of. Absolutely disgusting. Divorce lawyer here. People fighting like mad to get the dog in the divorce and then turning it over to a shelter out of spite. Although now in CA there can be serious consequences for doing that due to recent law changes about pets and divorce. But it wasn't always that way. I can't imagine ever hating someone so much I'd be willing to take it out on an innocent animal. Heck, some of these people take it out on their own kids. I was going to say, seems like once a month I read a story about a parent king a child because they are mad they lost custody or to prevent the other from getting custody. Wow, how pathetic and sad. If I had a client I suspected might do this, a mysterious stranger not connected to me in any way somehow always alerted the shelter beforehand and gave them the ex's contact info. Allegedly. Edit, thanks for the gold. Lawyer here. I once had a client drink another person's unflushed pee from a public toilet. The judge clearly disliked that he had to dismiss my client's case. Edit, lots of great questions. But I will remember what I learned at an MCLE training from Michael Jackson's lawyer. No comment is never the wrong answer. Judge, you're guilty of being super disgusting, but unfortunately for all of us, you somehow didn't actually break any laws. We have no law to fit your crime. Lawyers, the law is sacred. Also lawyers, I successfully defended someone's right to drink pee out of a public toilet. What? This guy is notorious around Columbus, Ohio. Walking into an elevator and not turning around. I've always wanted to enter a crowded elevator, stand by the entrance looking in as the door closes behind me and say, I bet you are wondering why I gathered you here. Walk in, stare at the wall, and mumble, and so it ends. Sir, what floor are you going to? 10. But there are only 6 floors. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. At Disneyland when it was Tower of Tist, they had you go upstairs and or regular elevators, versus the elevatoride, to get to the loading platform. Usually a cast member would act creepy or silly and say fun things as the elevator doors closed. One time a cast member, Tower of Tist bellhop, stepped in and just faced inwards towards us. Didn't say anything, just stared and slowly smiled more and more. And when the doors opened they took a step back and gestured where to walk, never breaking the creepy smile or 1,000-yard stare. It was perfectly unsettling. Man, I miss the Tower of Tist bellhops. They were even more dedicated to their roles than the Haunted Mansion cast members. ETA, I'm saying this because the Todd in Disneyland got rethemed to Guardians of the Galaxy. The TTS in WDW, Paris, and Tokyo, which is its own special deal, are all still there. Child beauty pageants. I have seen some of it, and yay, always a bunch of self-obsessed mothers putting their daughters through stress and misery, telling their daughters only looks matter so that the mother can get another trophy to stick in their display case and call themselves winners. My parents put me in a beauty pageant when I was 7. The school reports from my teachers and verbal reports from my parents as well as others around me note that after that whole shtick I became friendlier, more outgoing and more personable. That is not what I remember. What I remember is being forced to hold hands with someone's clammy, sweaty hands that always smelled like hair gel. What I remember is the humiliation as I realized I was supposed to walk to the center of the stage to receive my award. And I wasn't supposed to follow the voice that told me to come up. I ended up under the stage where the speakers were. Very confused. Until they said I would like to request name to come back onto the stage please. What I remember is competing against 16 yos who were mean and awful to us little ones. She stole my lunch and I was told I couldn't have more. Nothing happened to her. I was 7. But small enough that I could pass for 5. The bully was 16 and could easily pass for early 20s. I made one friend the whole time, like 9 months from signing up until the final show, and she was the only good thing about that whole experience. She was like 10, so but older than me, and she had options for friends her age if she had wanted them. But she stayed close to me and made sure I was safe because she saw I was the smallest kid around and I was all alone. What others saw and what I experienced were vastly different things. Becoming friendlier and more personable was not a good thing because it drained my emotional energy to be doing that. I naturally enjoy hanging out with a small circle and don't like making small talk or being overly social. But obviously extroversion is a desirable characteristic, so let's not question a good thing. If they questioned it, they would maybe understand that the extroversion that resulted from that experience was not a desirable characteristic but a defense mechanism. My older sisters were in pageants, and I believe they got runner-up a few times. I was and am a tomboy, and mother insisted I do at least one pageant. I was 12, and you were lucky if I brushed my hair. She dolled me up in this godforsaken dress, put enough aqua net in my hair to power a third world country, and constantly said sh like don't bite your nails. That's unladylike. Keep your hands folded in your lap. Cross your ankles. F. When she went to use the bathroom, some gentleman gave me a card to fill out, asking me about my interests so they could interview me on stage. I wrote sharks 3 times. Then, when asked, I went into my 12-year-old spiel about the history of sharks, especially megalodon, all the while tugging at my dress, itching my arms, and throwing in the occasional stutter for effect. My mother sat appalled in the front row. Checkin' mate. B. They should be illegal. Smelling a seat when someone stands up. I saw a man do similar on a subway. A woman got up from her seat and he rushed over and pressed his cheek into the warm spot. So he just sat down then? Face first. Like 15 years ago, one of the old guys at my work said, while looking out the window at one of the old ladies, who worked here at the time, "Park and get off her Harley. I'd like to smell that seat." We were all like, dude, WTF. Darn, look at that turd slicer. Following people on the street for extended periods of time. When Jeffrey Donovan was preparing for the role of Michael Weston Byrne Notice, about a spy, he followed people on the street and see if he could follow them without being caught. You'd have to be really, really bad at it for me to notice. It was likely Miami given the setting of the show. I dislike when I'm going the same way as someone walking in front of me and after a few turns they look back like I'm being an $1. Sorry for also needing to go this way. My friend's dad took us to the gym when we were kids. There was a line of like 30 treadmills with only one person, a lady on the end. He proceeds to pick the only treadmill adjacent to hers. Lol, even as a kid I was like, Simon man. This is like the line of 50 urinals at the freeway rest stop, picking the one next to the only one occupied on a slow day. In our office we had urinals that were physical individual units designed for one person and were quite spacious. I once saw the new guy in the office go up to a urinal next to someone and not realize that it was a urinal for one. The guy he shared with was the general manager and he was like, WTF. Couldn't stop laughing at the cringe. Maybe he wanted a sword fight. This is a complaint I hear from a lot of women about what they experience going to the gym alone. So many treadmills available but guys will come right next to them, then think it's okay to follow them later and start up a convo. Women don't go to the gym for this and it's not on occasion. It's a pattern they experience constantly. Social reps approach a gym cutie and incite negative reaction x15. Those toddlers in tiaras pageants. Yay televised child A. So this was basically the only comment here that was collapsed for me, which I think only happens when it has a lot of downvotes in addition to the upvotes. Makes me hope that people just instinctively downvoted in disgust at the thought, and not because they disagree that it's creepy. If it had a significant amount of downvotes it'd be labeled as controversial. It is not. Plus only comments with a net negative amount of votes should be collapsed. That's how Reddit works. This was definitely a mod's doing. The Trade Federation blockade around Naboo. They should send ambassadors. I'm sure negotiations wouldn't take too long. This is getting out of hand. Now there are 2 of them. The negotiations were short. Necrophilia was legal in the Netherlands until June this year. It was only banned this year, WTF. Before this, it was a crime, but not explicitly. A corpse was seen as an object, and it was a crime because necrophilia was seen as damaging an object that belonged to another, with punishments of up to 2 years in prison and a max fine of 22,500. Now necrophilia is a crime of itself. Can I put it in my will that I consent to necrophilia after I die? At least I'll get to have SMH missed out. Sitting at a pool, with a camera, fully clothed. Being on the receiving end of that is angering. Dude in his mid-60s employed at the DoD contractor campus where I work set up his deck chair facing the exit of the ladies' locker room. I had already clocked him when would come to the campus gym and work out shirtless and ask people, women, how old they though he was. He also helped women with their weightlifting technique whether they wanted it or not. Anyway, I had noticed he was sitting in his deck chair multiple times over the course of a week, watching women as they came out. Then suddenly the furniture in the locker room was rearranged so the towel shelf was moved closer to the lockers and the bench we used to change into our suits, you know, where you get fully naked before putting on your swimsuit, was moved to be totally visible when the exit door was opened. That dude was full on creep. So glad he was dismissed after I and multiple other women complained. He definitely broke some laws there. Speedophile. Someone who does a lot of watching but not a lot of swimming. I babysat for this couple that had a 3 and 6-year-old. They both still breastfed. They were pretty normal otherwise. I don't even mind extended breastfeeding. Like the 3-year-old was dislike for. Seeing that 6-year-old pull down her mother's shirt and latch was creepy. My aunt breastfed her son till he was 12 years old. We never knew until he pulled her shirt up when we were visiting. My mom was so upset at her. She is her older sibling. What the F? Our same reaction. He's 19 now. I think he is okay. Sorta. Sitting beside someone in a bus train when there are multiple available seats. I did this kind of by accident once. I sat next to a stranger on public transit because there were no other empty seats. As the bus continued down its route, people started getting off at the back of the bus, where I couldn't see them. I was distracted by my phone and didn't even consider moving to another seat. By the time I had to get off, I saw that we were the only 2 passengers left and it was extremely awkward. I once got onto a crowded tube carriage. People packed cheek to jowl. I was squashed up against a person in the corner, facing the back corner of the carriage. I was listening to music, eyes fixed on the top corner of the carriage. London rules. You know, for a few stops when eventually they tapped me on the shoulder and I turned around to see a spacious carriage. I was mortified. Oh my god. As a Londoner, the second-hand embarrassment I just got from your comment is unreal. My sympathies. Or anywhere for that matter. I had a lady sit right next to me in the library and we were the only 2 people in there. And then complained to me that I was too loud. Okay, then go TF somewhere else? In some places it's totally legal to eat human flesh and buy human leather. Bet it's a nightmare to find the right polish. Not in Poland. I approve of this comment. Whereabouts, with the exception of autonomous regions? It's actually federally legal to consume human flesh in the United States, except Idaho. However, murder, desecration of a corpse, getting the parts illegally is obviously illegal. Lol. Mowing my lawn in nothing but a Speedo bathing suit. My front neighbor is actually doing this, haha. He is a super nice guy but he is always outside in a Speedo during summer. Getting that tanning time in. Making those websites that count down to, usually female, celebrities turning 18. 3, 2, 1. Hey guys, check out Chloe's tits. I've never thought about them before this moment so it's not weird. I can F her get rejected by her now. Whoa. Worst part is since the pics they goggle over are still them when they were underage. Till. Saving your milk from your bowl of cereal in a jug in the fridge for guests. Edit, I didn't mention that it's a family jug. I just effing gagged reading this. F you. Family jugs and poop knives. This is why I come to Reddit. So my dad kinda did this when I was a kid. He'd eat a bowl of cereal, then I'd use his milk and have some cereal. It's absolutely disgusting. But when you're a kid you just think that's what everyone does. Taking photos of strangers. And then uploading it on the internet. As PFP. Where I live you go to prison for up to 2 years for it. Groping women for up to 10s in Italy. Imagining a stereotypical Italian guy running around with a stopwatch. That's assault. No senora, it's only been a 9 seconds. Ciao Bella. It's assault at the moment you putty your fingers in the pie, said in Poppy from Seinfeld's voice. I've just recently read about this case. It's so sickening. If you are on a public sidewalk, you can film through people's windows into their house. There is no expectation to privacy for anything that can be viewed from a public space. If you want the inside of your home truly private, close your windows. Edit. In the USA, close your windows seems like that would only marginally help, if at all. Drawing the curtains or shutters has got to be a better option for privacy. Why would drawing curtains be any better? Then I'd just have a picture of curtains. Marrying a child is legal in 40 U.S. states. Until weeks ago, it was 42. Progress is being made, albeit slowly. Fun fact, this current arrangement was progressive. 100 years ago, before we had laws saying you can't get married until you're 12 or were disliked for, there were no laws about this. Parents could and would marry off their 6-year-olds. There are multiple laws that follow that trend. For instance, before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, U.S. service members could be dishonorably discharged if their superiors suspected they were gay. After DADT went into effect, that was only supposed to happen if they talked about it openly. It seems backwards by today's standards, and was definitely still discriminatory, but at the time it was a huge step forward. Really specific, but this is my job, so I know about it. In the EU there is a lot of restrictions on how you handle animals for research, Directive 201063/EU. But there is no restrictions on the kind of animal data you use for research, as long as you didn't collect the data from living animal subjects in an EU member state. So you can use data that was drawn from animals living in the most appalling conditions and in contravention with any and all animal welfare standards, and it's perfectly legal. Right, so we're, the EU, basically creating animal testing labs outside the EU? Well no, the EU aren't. But it's certainly legal, though deeply unethical, for a researcher from a place with more restrictive laws to conduct research in a place with less restrictive laws and then bring the data back home to analyze and further use. It's called ethics tourism or ethics washing. Telling the world you would have sex with your daughter if she wasn't your daughter. By golly, that sounds like presidential material right there. Smelling people can be considered harassment. Depends how close you get, you'll get the hang of it. This guy smells. Filming the scene of accidents while emergency health care is being delivered. Jake Gyllenhaal? A professional news gathering service. Only a sociopath names their company something so basic as video production news. Tabloid journalism. Speculating random BS things about famous people off creep photos from paparazzi. Speculating about health, relationships, etc. Even going so far as to doctor photos just to sell the story they want. Tabloid journalism really is legally shaky, because part of libel is publishing unknowingly false information, so the tabloid can just claim they didn't know it was false. Daddy-daughter purity balls. My mind was reeling with what this could possibly mean, when it struck me that balls are not just spherical objects, but also formal dances. There is a ring involved, that the girl is supposed to wear, after pledging her purity to her father. No, none of it gets better, until she says I do, and then she's supposed to give it back to her dad as he's given her purity to her husband. Being friends with someone who grew up in that sure has been eye-opening. So she's letting her father hold on to her virginity. Essentially, that's bizarre. Children modeling. The industry is creepy and bad. In Germany at least it is not forbidden to buy a bike lock and just lock up random bikes from strangers. Edit. Okay NVM. Seems like it is forbidden to do so. My whole life was a lie. No, it's not. It may not be criminal in most cases, but it sure is a civil law issue. Section 858 BGB etc. Child marriage. Knocking on someone's front door to sell them something. Talk about religion. Collect charity etc. Mutterfucking God-forsaken Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on my door Saturday afternoon when I'm trying to get my son down for a nap. I could strangle someone. Just so you know, the whole point of them going door to door is so they get yelled at. It's a manipulation tactic they use to keep their members in the church. They send them door to door and inevitably a lot of people will, justifiably, get upset with them or act rude towards them. Then, when they get back to church, they can be told, see, the world is against people like us. The church is the only place you'll ever be accepted, so you have to stay. That's why they stopped coming to my door. For a while, I had people come by every so often and I was always polite. The last time, I was a little baked and still had morning hair and PJs on. I was thirsty, so I said, "I'm gonna grab a glass of water. Would you like some?" I always assumed it was the smell of W and my generally disheveled aspect. But maybe it was all that combined with me being too nice. Ha ha ha, I call that a win.